Linda and I met Clay. Linda and I met Clay back in September when we both had COVID. Huh? Back in September. Yeah, it's a year ago now. Okay, we both had the Delta variant of COVID, and Clay came to the house probably 4 or 5 times, and he got jabbed with needles, but he was very gentle, and filled us with fluids and tried to make us feel a little bit better. And but one of the things I think was so great about having him for us, just a way of personal testimony, is that there was so many things that weren't known about that, and he was out and about doing his business and dealing with people all the time. And I remember him coming in and telling me, I'm not in the video. Sorry, I didn't think about that. Behind the pulpit. Okay. That would be dangerous. But anyway, thank you, Tim. The thing that, outside of feeling absolutely horrible for about 12 to 15 days, Clay was able to let us know what he's seen out in the public and what was going on. And that had a certain amount of help and comfort to us even though he said, this is going to last 12 to 17 days. I hated that news, but it built an expectation. And then when I got sick about 2 months ago, of course, he was the first one we called, and he came back and he said, this is going to last about 5 days, and that's exactly what happened. So we have a lot of confidence in Clay, and so I'm going to ask Clay to come on up. So let's welcome him as a little crowd. Thank you, Clay.
Hey, everyone. It's good to see you. A lot of new faces, and it's enjoyed getting to meet you guys. A little bit nervous, so bear with me. So I'm Clay. I was born and raised here in Abilene. I'm about to be 33 years old. Grew up, went to Wiley High School, graduated in 2008. And if you can go to the next slide, there's a picture of me currently. Then the next slide is a picture of my family. Dallas has 2 or 3 places. Austin has 2 or 3 places going around. Maybe we can do it too. So really cool. I never considered myself an entrepreneur initially, but growing up, I was always passionate about like Shark Tank, Marcus Lemonis on The Profit. I don't know why, but as a high school kid, I just found myself eating that up. I loved it, the margins and who's your audience? How do you reach them? How do you streamline the process? I'm very methodical, and that just appealed to me. So little did I know I was just kind of shaping what I would need to do what I do currently with my own business. But like I said, it became a partnership. That was right around the time when COVID started. And COVID, initially I was working in ICU, had no idea about COVID yet. It hadn't hit us. It hadn't really affected us. but we were dreaming of starting this business, and then sure enough, COVID happened, so it was like, we need to hurry up and launch now. So we launched, which was a great time to start a mobile medical service that's coming to your house when people are afraid to go out and about. So the timing just was very special. It couldn't have worked out any better. After about a year and a half, unfortunately, our business partnership went away just from differences, and I'll leave that at that. But unfortunately, it just didn't work out. So in the meantime, I started a Respect the Fish guide service just because I loved working for myself. And I'm like, what if I could make some money fishing while this business is trying to grow and make ends meet? So I started a Respect the Fish guide service that lasted about a year. Eventually, when our business partnership went away, we ended up starting our own business called Big Country Mobile Med. But we started off very much in kind of guerrilla advertising. We did signs everywhere, yard signs, and that's at the corner of 707 and 277 south of town, where my parents live. We were putting signs up everywhere, trying to get business, and trying to figure out who our audience was. I did not know who my audience was. I thought maybe people who are sick. Well, that's not a really great answer. There's actually more specifically started to hone in on who my audience was. So started off very humble. The picture right before that showed just like a $50 sign on my truck, and that's just how we started, and just try to stay within our means. You know, it wasn't within our means to go spend $1,000 or something to wrap our vehicle. So we spent about $50 and got a sign on it. And then a business grew. The next slide, we ended up paying $500 or $600, got our truck wrapped. Wow, looks a lot better. A lot more presentation, a lot more visibility. And then as my business partnership went away, we started to do Big Country Mobile Med. That's my own baby, and that's been around for about a year and a half. And it was very humbling as that experience, as that business closed, as Abilene Mobile Med closed, and I had to move on. It was very humbling that the relationships that I had built for the last year and a half went into my next business. There was not a hiccup whatsoever, even though I changed the name, changed the phone number. People knew how to find me and they followed me, which was such a humbling experience to realize, wow, it wasn't just the service, it was actually me that they were following. So because of that, I actually put my name on my business on the next slide, and it just gave it a whole different personal touch that people have been very receptive to. Same with like Bryant's Plumbing. I mean, you put your name on the business, and I didn't realize that meant something to a lot of folks, especially in this town. Your name goes a long ways, and it's more than just a plumbing service or a medical service. It's my medical service, and I'm going to do the best I can for my clients. And then what's on the next slide there? Had to redo my truck. And then eventually, earlier in the year, the hard thing about my business is in the wintertime, I'm super busy. I need 5 people helping me. In the summertime, I need just myself. Otherwise, that overhead's going to eat me alive. So it's been very challenging figuring out how do I get the help I need without, make it sustainable year-round, not just in the wintertime. But at the beginning of the year, I hired some help, and we ended up getting another vehicle to get on the road. And anyway, so it's kind of interesting. We've learned a lot through doing business. Anyway, give me a second. Sorry, I'm trying to think of the next thing. I get a little nervous. But some of the big things I've learned is, business partnerships. Unfortunately, if I could go back, I wouldn't have done a business partnership. It cost me one of my best friends, and I have seen that through a lot of businesses that they lose their friends or their family over having a business partnership just because they didn't know the first few steps to get a business started. It would have been a lot wiser for me to reach out to some mentors or hire somebody and get those things rolling. So I've learned my lesson on that. One thing I've currently learned too is how to hire employees. That has been a huge struggle for me because I tend to be an overgiving person. And all of a sudden I find myself in an over-promising situation where I'm paying 3 or 4 times what I should be paying for help. And because I'm trying to bless them. And that's just, it's not reproducible, it's not scalable. So that was a hard lesson learned. Let's see. I had a very interesting year. One thing last time when I talked to Mike, something very unfortunate happened to me about 6 months ago. I had basically a near-death experience, and it's hard to talk about. But it kind of snapped me out of the cycle of beating myself up over mistakes that I've made. I think us as entrepreneurs, we tend to be overachievers, perfectionists even, and I just constantly beating myself up over this failed partnership of having an employee that I basically couldn't sustain, and he ended up leaving, so I took it very personal. But I was in this horrible cycle of beating myself up over past mistakes, and I just could not get out of it. And unfortunately, I had a terrible experience that felt like I was dying, and it was COVID related. It's called vasculitis. Your blood vessels get inflamed, they spasm, and when I had it, it made me very weak. My heart rate would speed up, and I would start seeing tunnel vision and felt like I was about to die. And something about that near-death experience really set my thinking straight to where I wasn't beating myself up anymore over past mistakes. I stopped living to such extreme amount where I was just doing everything for my business and not my family. My family was second, third, or fourth on my list, and the business was one. And because of my overachieving personality, I guess, and extreme personality. But since then, in that moment, I was actually laying in my neighbor's yard, looking at my house, looking at my business vehicles, thinking that I'm about to take my last breath in the next minute or two. And I remember thinking, none of this matters. What house I live in doesn't matter. How successful I am doesn't matter. So, just a big lesson learned. So ever since then, I feel like I've been a lot more balanced of a person. This job has always been more than just a business to me. I mean, became my identity, which is good and bad. I think we need to, as people that are overachievers and investing in our business, I think it's important to have a balanced life to where it's not our everything. It's just part of who we are, not our identity. And anyway, sorry, I kind of rambled on. I had
okay.
a lot to say. And
Clay,
Yes.
you said that during that time frame you figured out what didn't matter.
yeah,
What did you figure out that did matter?
the biggest thing is in that moment, I just wanted my kids, I wanted my wife, and they should never be second or third to my business. The business needs to be behind all that. Because if you're working your tail off and it costs you your marriage or ruins your friendships or your relationship with your kids, then what do you have? And that's the big thing that I learned from that. Yes, sir.
Tommy?
That's a really great question. He said, where do I want to be in the next 5 to 10 years? And I would say the biggest thing is I would like to have a few employees to where, I don't have the burden on me. Right now I'm a one-man show going around doing these sick visits, and I'm starting to try to hire some nurses. So I'm hoping to stay fairly small. Ever since that near-death experience, I'm not here to take over Abilene. I'm not here to take over the world and conquer it and put my flagpole in I'm just not here to take over the world anymore. So I want to make an honest living. I'd like a few people to help me, but stay fairly small and just stay in this area. So my dreams actually got a lot smaller, but a lot more focused since this near-death experience. I did. So one thing about my business is we're self-pay only or cash pay. We don't do insurance, Medicare, and Medicaid, mainly because we'd have to hire 2 or 3 people to sit behind a desk and fight insurance. And what I love about my service is a lot of it's consumer-based, where, hey, I want an IV. I feel a little run down. Insurance doesn't go for, I want an IV. They go for, you're dehydrated and you need an IV. So my business gets to be very consumer-based, where, hey, I'm going out of town and load me up with some vitamins and hydration. So we can do that because it's self-pay. Also, by going into people's houses, we stayed away from insurance because we don't want to go into just anybody and everybody's house. We want to go into nicer houses, nicer areas. And if we took any and every insurance, Medicare and Medicaid, we would be all over Abilene, which maybe not be the best idea if you're going into people's houses. So I found my niche. It tends to be business owners. Certain zip codes tend to use me over and over again. but business owners in particular use me over and over again, which is really cool. I get to know so many people go in the back of businesses, restaurants, all sorts of cool stuff. So I love the connections that I built, and I think that's one reason that has led me to be successful in the last 3 years is the connections that I built. I've long joked that I'm not in the medical business as much as I'm in the people business and the relationship business. And I see some heads nodding, you know, even doing plumbing. I'm sure you build relationships with people, and that's what makes you a good business. More than just doing a good job, actually, those relationships. Yes, ma'am. I do. So I go in anybody and everybody. Oh, okay. She asked if I go in and see people with COVID, and the answer is yes, I do. My prices are listed on my website on bigcountrymobilemed.com. So IV visits are typically $200 to $300 for most of my IVs. There's one that's $340, and that's kind of the all guns out approach where you get vitamins and fluids and all the drugs you need. A lot of visits are, you know, $150 to $200 if I show up and do a strep test or a shot, something like that. Yes, ma'am.
So is this, two quick questions. Number one, is this something that people could self-file on their insurance if they went to on the backside? I mean, you
Yes.
have the medical diagnosis code, all the documentation for somebody to file their own insurance.
Perfect. Yeah. So she's asked if we can file with insurance or they can file themselves with insurance. And the answer is yes. And a lot of times I do invoices and I try to put a bunch of codes on there that justify it. Every once in a while, insurance will reimburse them, but a lot of times, you know, oh, well, we want a different code, or we want, they want to fight it, even if it's over a $200 visit, sadly.
And the next question is, how is this different or is this the same as what's considered like concierge medicine?
Oh, that's a good question. So, is this considered the concierge medicine? Um, Yes and no. So a lot of times, like MD VIP is a big concierge medicine place here in town, and that's where you have a family doctor that is basically kind of at your beck and call. I mean, you have their cell phone number, and it's a high-end service. I would say I'm a little different than that because I'm not doing primary care; it's all urgent care. But I do have a very much a concierge feel to it because my clients have my cell phone number. They text me. Even right now, I have a few text messages to respond to. So it's very much a VIP experience, and that's one reason I've kind of joked. I'm trying to be the Perinis of urgent care. You know, there's going to be knockoffs that show up, and they're going to be more like Roadhouse. And there already is somebody that's somewhat doing what I'm doing as far as paramedics, but they can't diagnose, they can't send in prescriptions. They're very, very limited on what drugs they can give you without a physician standing over their shoulder. So to me, I'm trying to be the Perinis. You know, you get top quality, and you get what you pay for. Yes, health savings account. Yes, so we do accept the flat spending card. So we do take, I guess, a form of insurance if you have the flat spending cards. Yes, ma'am. I have played with that a little bit. So she asked, am I thinking about adding on more services and keeping my customer base small, but add a few more services? I've toyed with that, and I've put stuff out there and I've taken it away a few times. Like one was Botox, so for cosmetics, you know, get the wrinkles out and all that. And I don't know. So I've decided I'm an urgent care service. I'm going to try to stay in my lane the best I can. And I find that the more focused I am, the better I do. Versus, hey, let's do, you know, sport physicals, DOT physicals, Botox. Let's do fillers for the lips. Let's do IVs for sick people. All of a sudden, it becomes, what are you? You know, so I've learned to kind of stay in my lane, keep it really simple and small. But if something comes up that intrigues me, absolutely, I would add. Actually, recently I added a weight loss shot, and I'm the only one in town that carries it. It's pretty cool. Oh, nice. So she asked if we can provide packages since people use this over and over again. I've played with that. It actually became a nightmare to where it's like, hey, if you if you pay $200 up front, I'll give you the shot for all month, every week. And when I had 3 or 4 people, just 3 or 4 people doing it, it's like they would miss a week. We're out of town this week. All of a sudden it became, I don't know if this is shot 2, 3, or 4. So I've learned just to keep it fee for service. When I walk out, I'm paid, and I can move on. And just it makes it that much simpler and streamlined. But I've looked at doing packages, and it just didn't work out. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I could diagnose and write prescriptions, was his question. Yes, sir, Brian. Oh, I got you. He asked if basically COVID infusions and categories. Was that what you were? Oh, I got you. So the COVID infusion, they actually stopped doing probably about a year ago, if that's what you're talking about, the antibody infusion. They found, I guess with the Delta variant or right after that, they found that the infusions were not helping and it was questionably harming people. That they actually have done away with it, and to my knowledge, they don't even offer it anymore. The good news is COVID has become more of a cold for a lot of people, and I feel like part of my job is kind of being a cheerleader going, look, you have COVID. It's okay. This is not what you had a year ago. This is not what your friend died from last year. This is more of a cold, and you're going to feel better in 4 or 5 days. And the less I do for you, the better you're going to do. Meaning no steroids, no antibiotics, just immune support with hydration and vitamins. Because I feel like I'm a cheerleader half the time, especially now. Yes, ma'am. Did you have a question?
Yeah, so sorry, double, triple dip.
You're good.
So I know that you were kind of back to the business end of this, and you seem a little reluctant to talk about the partnership without naming any names or you
Sure.
but I mean, if you were going to give someone advice on where to be wary, because I think there's always an opportunity for business partnerships and things that people say, hey, let's get together and do this. So what are the big lessons and the big red flags you either missed or ignored or discovered after the fact that you would advise people to watch for when considering a partnership?
Yeah, that's good. So she's asking basically, what do you look for when you're considering a partnership, and what are some red flags maybe that showed up? What's tough with partnership is one of you is going to work your tail off, and the other one's probably not. And that's what I found is that I was the one working my tail off. I have my cell phone. I'm fishing on a Saturday morning, and my phone's ringing, and I only am getting a small percentage of it, and not what I feel like I'm deserved. And so I think that's a big part. One of you is going to work your tail off, and one of you probably isn't. And that's what I have found in a lot of businesses when they start opening up about their partnership history. The reason I mainly needed one is like I didn't know what an LLC was or PLLC. What is that? How easy is that? That's $500 on LegalZoom to do, but I didn't know that. So I ended up with a partnership because I didn't know those next few steps. It scared the fire out of me to even try to do those few steps without help the first time. But the things I'd look for, I probably would not do a partnership with a friend ever again. I would not do partnership for a few questions that you could ask a lawyer either, which would be like the LLC and some of that stuff. But that's hard. So a lot of times you just don't know what you're getting into until you're a month into it or a year into it or 2 years into it or however long. I don't know if that answers your question, but
So kind of clarify roles and responsibilities. That
yes,
the short answer is make sure everybody knows who's doing what and no one gets hung with everyone.
right. Make sure your responsibilities are clear.
So as far as financially, do you feel like that was clarified as well as far as who got what?
As far as what we chipped in for a business partnership, it didn't take a whole lot to start the business. I don't even think it took $10,000 to start the business. But we just kind of chipped in equally on that. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate you guys. Sorry, I fumbled through everything I meant to say. There's one slide. I don't know if you can go to that one with Dolly Parton. The last one. So the closing remarks is some stuff. this is my big lesson learned. This actually showed up after my kind of near-death experience, and this message has just hit home to me. But Dolly Parton said, "Never get so busy making a living that you forget to make a life." And that is something that just hits home and sings, just rings so true to me that before I was doing everything to make a living and make a name for my business and grow it. And I think starting off, you probably have to be extreme, but there's a time and place for that, and there's a time and place to tone it down and focus on your family, focus on your kids, and don't do the business at their expense. Is my biggest lesson that I learned. So to me, Dolly Parton summed it up. Work your tail off to make a business, but work your tail off to make a family and make a life and make memories that are going to last. Because one day you'll miss it. Yes.
As far as, and you kind of identified your target niche, but what is your short mission statement or your short sales pitch? If we wanted, if we ran into your customer, what should we tell them?
So what's kind of my sales pitch? I've never sat down and come up with a direct mission statement. My heart behind my business is I want to take exceptional care of people. I respect your time. It's kind of a simple country boy, mentality of I'm going to show up on time. I'm going to do what I say. I'm going to say what I do, and treat you very right. So to me, it's a high-end VIP type service. It's kind of the heart behind the business anyway. And I don't know if that answers it. I wish there was a pop little answer for it, but that's my heart behind it. I think that's what served me well is even a day or two after I see my clients, I'm texting them to say, "Hey, how are you feeling? Do you need anything else from me?" And that just doesn't exist in the medical community. That heart and that love for people does not exist from what I've seen and from my experience with my own medical stuff. I don't know if that, yeah.
I can tell you that when he came to our house, it was like it was very, very comfortable, and he would ask us all kinds of questions to try to get to what all the symptoms we had, and we found him to be very, very thorough, and like he said, and very caring, for us. And so, yeah, and encouraging. We can just tell from his personality, he's an encouraging guy, and you need to have that when you're feeling miserable anyway, Darren?
So you may mention this earlier. What type of insurance do you feel like you have to carry? Since you're dealing with medical health issues, how do you handle that?
Good. So she asked about what type of insurance I carry. So legally have to carry a liability insurance and medical malpractice insurance. I have a professional business insurance for my vehicles, and then I also carry another liability policy that helps. So at the minimum, you need at least a malpractice insurance as a medical provider showing up into someone's house. They are not as bad as I thought. So the medical malpractice insurance may cost me $1,500 to $2,000 a year. So it's not outrageous, and that's a pretty good policy actually. So it's not outrageous at all, surprisingly. Everything else medical is, but not the malpractice. Well, I appreciate you guys.